Oh well, hello one and all, and welcome to Woah Pony podcast, brought to you live from Riverside Radio in Battersea Park, London, UK. How are we? Thank you very much for joining me today. I am Grace Clark, and if you're listening on the radio, I will be with you between now and 8 o'clock here with the live podcast recording and with some tunage. And if you're listening on the podcast, hello and welcome, and thank you for joining me. If you haven't listened to this podcast before, I am Grace, and each week I do my show live on Riverside Radio, and I choose a topic random. Maybe it's been influenced by how my week's been, and I will find stories that correlate to that topic and I will share them with you. For example, last week we did... Oh my god, what did we talk about last week? Someone shout it out. What did we talk about last? Schools. Last week we spoke about schools. I found stories about scandals that happened in schools and shared them with you, my wonderful listeners. And this week's topic of the week is customer service. Customer service. I've got some cracking stories to share with you of a few Karens, a few... What's the male version of a Karen? A Darren? No, I don't know. I'm not too sure. Whatever the male version of a Darren is. And I've got some stories from you, from the horse's mouth, from retail workers or bar workers, anything really, just in a working environment where they've had bad customers. Not necessarily from the point of view where someone's received bad customer service, because they're not as easy to find. I've got some stories of the audacity of some people to have complained and been rude and horrible to our workers in different environments. I actually can't wait to get started, so let's crack on. Customer service. Let's chat and have some story time of some incidents that have happened. I've got some stories that I found online of things, bad customers. We actually did an episode on customer service quite a few months ago. I had Oliver Wood on as a guest, and if you please go back and listen to that, I've got some stories that I shared in that episode, and we shared our own stories. But today I've got some new updated stories of things that have happened, and it's just me and my lads. So let's crack on, shall we? The first story says, are we ready? I'm ready. I worked for a small retail clothing store for over a year, and after the sudden and unexpected death of my mother-in-law, beg your pardon, I took one day off to be with him and help him to start sorting through her things. Because of this, the store was closed on a random Tuesday. When I came in the next day, two ladies were waiting at the door and forced me to open early. One of them had the audacity to say to me after I told her my mother-in-law had passed away just 2 days before, "I don't care about what happened. You should have been here regardless." Charming. Another customer told me I was being extremely selfish when I explained I wasn't going to see my family over Christmas because both my parents are getting older and my 102-year-old grandfather was celebrating with them. This was when COVID was raging and there was no vaccine. I cried myself to sleep that night because I was already upset about missing a holiday, but that was the tip of the iceberg. I will never forget that. Some people are delightful. Some people are absolutely delightful, and I think people like that make other people just look 10 times kinder. Let's move on to the next one. This story says, I've had lots of customer service jobs, but Starbucks was the worst. I got yelled at for many, many cups of coffee. One customer I won't forget was a woman who ordered a caramel frappuccino with non-dairy milk. Coconut to be specific. Here's the thing, frappuccinos require whole milk or heavy cream to stay solid longer, meaning non-dairy will melt way faster. When she ordered it, I informed her of this. She worked next door, so she ran back to work, but of course came back a short time later. Her frappuccino had melted, like I told her it would, and she screamed and shouted that it wasn't what she ordered and demanded another one. We made it, and again, and surprise, surprise, it melted again. She demanded a full refund, but did not get one since we told her twice that this is what would happen, and eventually she left with her melted frappuccino. Well, I've learnt something today, that frappuccinos need whole milk or heavy cream. If we've learned anything today, folks, it's that you need whole milk or heavy cream in a frappuccino, and that you shouldn't scream at your servers. That is rude. I can't even imagine an occasion where I'd be so vexed and angry that I would scream at someone in a shop, or just scream at someone generally. You know. Okay, the next one says, when I worked in retail, there was a woman who would come into my store regularly, and whenever I rang up her order, she'd argue about the prices. She'd say, no, it's $3.95. I'd show her the tag and she'd snap and say, I didn't ask what the tag says. I don't care. You'll ring it up at $3.95 because that's all it's worth. Oh my gosh. While trying to explain why I couldn't do that, she'd accuse me of being rude, talking back and lying, and lecture me about how stupid and worthless store clerks are. Yes, those were her words. She'd then screech for the manager. He'd give her the same explanation we did, but she took it from him, not us. She'd rant while her order was wrapped up about dumb, trashy people, and how she could always tell who will never amount to anything in life. When handing her the bag, she'd give you a hard rap on the arm or rake her nails down it and say, oh, did I scratch you? The store owner didn't care. Oh my gosh. What a psychopath. Imagine having nothing else going on in your life that you have to behave like that. That is unacceptable. I'm shocked. I'm shocked and disappointed in the behaviour of some human beings on this planet. Next one. This one makes you wonder what in the world people are thinking. Ooh, I like the start of it already. I worked at a home goods store. We were having one of our annual sales, and most of the top selling items were near the front of the store. By one entrance was this big table where towels were displayed, and one day it suddenly started to rain pretty heavily. Customers rushed inside the store for cover, and one of them started to use the towels that were for sale to dry himself off. Then a number of others also thought it was a brilliant idea and proceeded to dry themselves with said towels too, hence making them unsellable. That's really strange. I feel like that was sort of like mob mentality. People probably thought, oh, these towels are here for us to use because that gentleman is using them. My first instant response would be, oh, that is a weirdo using the store towels. Why would you think that it was okay to do that? Maybe he looked pretty sort of normal and they thought,
well, he's a normal looking person. You know, he'd be using those towels for a reason.
I don't know why I'm trying to justify it. Next one says, I worked in a movie theatre that was privately owned and didn't offer discounts on afternoon movies. This one lady swore at me for false advertising on matinee showings. She insisted it's not a matinee if it's full price. I told her matinee just means it shows in the afternoon. She proceeded to call me stupid and that she'd have us all arrested for false advertising. I really hope she did try to call the cops. Can you imagine someone calling up the police? Someone's called you and said,
yes, I need you to come to the cinema and you need to arrest these people for false advertising.
People are concerning. People concern me. Okay. Moving on. I used to work at a very upscale store in a very upscale neighbourhood. We had a customer come in one day and release his bowels in a garbage can in our changing room. It was, oh gosh, it was it was the most vile thing I ever smelled in my life. If that's not enough, I had a friend who worked at a tanning salon in the same area, and after a customer left, she went to go clean the bed, and she took out the towel they had left behind, and a huge piece of poop flew out. Oh, that's really tickled me. I've gone really warm. The fact that this is in an upscale neighbourhood, why are people just going wherever they want? That is outrageous. That is outrageous. Right, okay, I don't really know what to say about that one. But let's move on to the next one. When I was a teenager, I worked at the layaway counter on Christmas Eve. I don't know what that means. I went 6 hours without even a restroom break, and our line was at least 10 people long the whole day. When someone finally came to relieve me for a bathroom break, a customer grabbed my arm and told me to get back in there. I wanted to slap her, but I just yanked my arm away and walked off. Don't touch retail employees. They are only human. Yes, you're right. You're right, madam. You are right. Don't touch. Just don't touch anyone. Just don't touch anyone, okay? I can't believe that someone went, get back in there. To be fair, though, I used to work at New Look, and people around holiday times are mental. So, yeah, that's all I've got to say about that one, really. Next one. When I was in college, I worked at a burger cocktail joint, sort of like a TGI Fridays. It was in the middle of a business district, so we got a lot of people daily. I don't know how else to say it, but the customers were horrible people. Don't mince your words, love. I had one lady who was very pregnant order a burger and list all the toppings she wanted added. I read the order back to her and she asked if I was dumb and said, "Is that why you're repeating the order back?" insinuating I couldn't remember what she asked for. I said, "No, this is just what this restaurant makes us do." When her burger came, she lost it because there were pickles on it. She starts sobbing and screaming at me. She took the pickles off and threw them at my face, demanding a new burger. Her family remained dead silent. I tried to calm her down by telling her I would get her another burger. The kitchen remade her order, and the manager delivered it to her this time because of the chaos she caused before, but I was right next to him as he did so. Her first comment was, "Well, that took forever." She then opened the burger and asked where the pickles were. Everyone around the table tried to say things like, "Sweetie, you just told them you didn't want pickles." And she was like, "Yeah, but I want them now. They're just dumb servers who are incapable of getting an order right." Oh my gosh. My manager bought her a side of pickles, to which she replied, "Thanks for taking your sweet time for a hungry pregnant lady." And then she didn't tip. There were so many other horrible ones, but she was horrid. Oh my goodness me. What a roller coaster. What a journey that was, that story. Thank you for sharing that with me. That is a right... Honestly, that was a journey. That was a journey. She was either very hormonal or just a horrible person. I mean, even so, you can't blame hormones on that. That is... Imagine crying over pickles. Okay, one more, and then we're going to go to the, if you're listening on the radio, we're going to go to the half-past adverts. And if you're listening on the podcast, we'll go to part 2. The last one before the advert says, I worked at a... and it was one of the most miserable experiences I've ever had at a job. I worked in the dress department and I was yelled at every day during prom and wedding season by mothers of the bride and bridezillas. Ooh! My forte, my speciality. Most of the time I was left on my own to cashier. Clean, soiled dresses stained with... I can't read all that out. This is a local community radio show and podcast, and I don't know how to... Basically, she cleans soiled dresses that have got awful things on, while also emptying racks of dresses back onto the sales floor. One time I was even written up by one of my floor managers after a mum complained because I told her that her young daughter was damaging a display of very expensive shoes. Okay. All right then, thank you for that journey, and we're going to come back in part 2 with some more retail stories, and on that note, I'll be right back.